What up YouTube, Motor Michael here, coming at you with another video on the SYE kit install while the transfer case is still in the vehicle. I did not have to remove any of this extra skid plate or transfer case itself. Heard it'd be difficult. It was rather easy for me. I'm sure it'd be easy for you after I give you a few tips and tricks. We'll go over this by breaking the breakdown first and then the install. Alrighty, let's go front to back. Alrighty, up front up here, you're going to remove 5/16 bolts from the back of this knuckle that go through the yoke. And then you see there's a nut in here. You're going to use an 1 1/8" socket to remove that. It should just slide right off. As you see, I still haven't torqued that down yet. But a good tip is you're going to need a 2x4, and it slides right under here. You see where this, when you go to untorque, or I guess put some torque on it and take it off and it wants to spin, it catches that 2x4 right here, and so you can just drive it out without putting any stress on your gears in here and, like, I guess the chain itself. From there you should be good. That should slide right off. Now for this, you'll have to remove some more 5/16 nuts from the back of this yoke on the pinion, and the rear drive shaft should slide right off the slip yoke. Now for this, you're going to want to drain the fluids, remove these cables out your way. You're going to have to push this clip down. You see how I just clip, boom. You make sure it's pushed down good out your way, and it should just clip off. You remove this, the fluid's out. You can remove this right here. It's kind of difficult. You can spin and twist it. Remember where this is, though. Apparently that has to do something with your speedo. Alrighty, so I just, on my old casing, I etched a line or drew a line with a Sharpie and made sure I knew where it was. From there, you're gonna wanna remove, there's a dust cover right here on the old slip yoke. You're gonna just clip it off, cut the rubber away, and cut the rings off. You should be able to pry the rings off with a screwdriver. You don't really have to cut it, it'll just slide off as a boot. From there, there's going to be like a dust cover like this one has, but instead you're going to just get either a flathead, a decent skinny flathead, or a chisel, and pry it up and then just pop it around like a paint lid all the way around, and that should just pop right off. And then you'll get to your first snap ring that you got to take some snap ring pliers and pull it off. I've found out that having a pick on one side, pushing it up, and then the snap ring pliers on this side helps remove it easier, and then maybe some needle noses will help you slide it off, and using the snap ring pliers to help pry and shimmy it off. From there, you should be able to remove all these 5 nuts from around the outside of this, and it should slide off. You will have to pry it off. You might want like some type of claw, like a tiny crowbar, a claw. This pry point works the best. This one I didn't get much from, and this one you can't really get anything behind, but this one works really good. You just put it right in here, pry it up, and it should pop out pretty good. From there, this will be removed, and you'll see the oil pump. Now, the oil pump's tricky when you have this removed, because this shaft right here wants to droop. And when it's drooping, you kind of have to push up and slide it out. It has play where it'll slide out, but it won't come out because this case is still here and the chain is in the way. So from there, sorry for my neighbors, they're getting down and dirty, huh? I'll shut my garage real quick. Oh. It looks like they want to turn it down. Oh, turn it back up. Well, I can't tell. Alrighty. I'll just shut this real quick. Sorry for the noise and commotion in the messy garage. pulled this off, got to the pump, and the shaft droops. Alright, when the shaft droops, you're going to want to have to slide it out a little bit. It has play, and you can slide it out and push it up. And you got to unhook the itty bitty line down in here. And once you unhook that, you should be able to just slide the oil pump itself off. And the oil pump, don't be afraid if it looks like it's starting to like fall down on the shaft. It's supposed to move around the shaft like that. It's not really locked in there until, I guess, it's all aligned right. It kind of like, it sets funny. Hey, you'll see what I'm talking about. But from there, you'll have that removed. You can go and pull out all your bolts around the side. Remember all the placements of them. I think those are a 15 millimeter, and you might have one 10 millimeter up here. This is on a 2004 TJ. From there, I didn't really use any of the pry points since I had this all removed. I stuck my hands inside the case, and it's popped really simply. It didn't take much force at all, especially when I was able to grab from the inside and like hook into it and pull. It just popped right out. But you do have to be careful. There is a shaft that the shifter rides on that has a spring pressed up against this case right here. You don't really want to bend that or twist that or mess up any of this. But I'm pretty sure you're not going to do that from just pulling on it, especially if you're under the vehicle. It's not like you're getting a Hulk Hogan grip on it and ripping it. But from there, you'll have the casing pulled off. You'll see the main shaft, and then the front, I guess the front's little gear and output shaft, and the chain. You want to slide that whole assembly out, clean everything, go to remove the other snap ring that's in the front of the main gear that you got to grab off of the original shaft. Once you remove that, you can replace it and put it on the old or the new shaft. I apologize. And from there, you go to install it as you would. Most people say you have to slide this main shaft in and this gear at the same time, but that's not true. For me, I just slid the shaft in once I had it all put together and the snap ring back in place. Grease it a little bit with some, I had gear lube, that was just easiest on me. I had some ATF, I should have used it, but slid that in. And from there, I took the chain and the tiny gear, because it's a heavy contraption altogether. I took the tiny gear and the chain, and I looped the chain over the main gear on this main input, or I guess where the main input comes from, and slipped it over that like I would a bicycle chain. And then the hole from the front up here, I just slid the gear right in place, and it wasn't really that bad, being that, like I said, this kind of has slop and sags once you remove this housing. So it gives you play. The chain kind of loosens up in there, and so this kind of is like a tensioner for it, I guess, once everything's back in place. So that was fairly easy. Then once that's all back in there assembled, you make sure you have all your parts. You put this outside casing on. Make sure you put silicone around, let it sit for a little bit, press out. Once it pressed out, just a tad bit, don't torque to factory spec until it sits for about an hour. Then you can torque them down. That gives it a good solid seal. I'm pretty sure it says that in the directions for the silicone itself. From there, you want to connect the oil pump before you go to put the gear on. I made a mistake and put the gear on first while I had everything out, thinking it would be easier, but then I put it in and had to remove all my snap rings, and then that little gear that goes to the speedometer, and then pull it all back apart just to get the oil pump back on. The oil pump was really tricky getting it back on. I had to push up on this, once again, how it has that slop. It is kind of difficult to get it in place. That's the only thing that I had difficulty with, besides snap rings. get you a good set of snap ring pliers. But that was the only difficulty I had with this, was the oil pump connection down here. Now I took a hook pick and I hooked it around the hose itself. It's a little metal hose that goes down to the filter, and I hooked that good, and I pushed up on this, and I was holding on the bottom of the oil pump with this hand at the same time, pushing on it, making sure it was pushed up as far as it could go, and I watched the holes meet, and then I once I had the pick with the other hand, I kind of like pushed it and shimmied them together, and then I took, and you'll see the hose itself has a lip. I took my hook, once it's all together good, you'll have room to play up under it. I took my hook and pushed that lip upwards, so there's a good seal on the oil pump in here. And then you can shimmy it around and watch the hose move with it, and you'll be able to tell it's got a good seal on it. Make sure your O-ring was pressed into the oil pump real good. I should have said that before. From there, you can put this back on. Oh wait, my bad. I forgot about the gear again. I'm doing it backwards. I had to put the Speedo gear back on. There's a snap ring, then the Speedo gear, and then a snap ring again. And then from there, I put this back on with some silicone. Once again, do the same thing. Let it set before you go to torque it. And then from there, make sure you grease all of this before you slide this in, so it doesn't like mess up the boot and stuff like that. We use a lot of, I guess, these for like suspension and motorcycles, and they can go bad fairly easy. You don't want them leaking. From there, wait to torque these once again. You can put this plug in place. It was kind of difficult for me to get it in there. It kind of cut the seal just a little bit. It says fairly tight fit and sharp. I'm not sure if you can see it. Get a light to it. Just can't tell, but it's in there pretty good. If you do have a parts cleaner, I'd say go ahead and clean all your stuff that you can, even slide it up under the vehicle and clean out this casing if you may. It'll help. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to help, as long as you don't have dirt and debris floating around the transfer case, you'll be fine. Definitely check on what your liquid look like coming out. From there, I had this all put back together. I still haven't torqued all this. I slid the yoke on with a little bit of grease around here. I just have this on. I don't have it torqued down yet. From there, that's about it. Wasn't too bad of an install while it was in the vehicle. A lot of people said that might have been harder to get everything together. Yeah, if you would have tried taking this right here and the main shaft and the other little front output shaft while it was in this, it's really heavy, so be careful when you're pulling that down. You might need another hand. I kind of had to like army crawl with my elbows up to get it around on the garage floor. But from there, you should be pretty good. Let me know how you like it. Any comments will help.